Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Edge Extra. My name is Adam Asher, and today we have a great guest with us. His name is Daisson Hickel, and he's an entrepreneur. He is CEO. He's a husband and a father. He is also active military and an adventurer. So, Daisson, first, let me welcome you to the program. Thanks for being here.
Oh, thank you very much, Adam. It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
You and I connected via Instagram initially, and one of the great things about Instagram is the ability we have there to connect brands and really just people to connect who have similar interests, and I'm really thankful for that. It's great to meet you. I now consider you a friend. You're the CEO and founder of the Java Can. Give me the elevator pitch. What is the Java Can? Folks can look it up at thejavacan.com, but tell us briefly what it is.
So the Java can is an ability to make coffee literally anywhere in the world. What I did is because I am in the military, I have access to ammo cans, and when I'm deployed, they're pretty much all over the place. So back in 2014, I was deployed to Afghanistan, and I repurposed a military ammunition can into a full barista kit that I could take out on mission, and make coffee for me and my teammates and my interpreters and other enablers to just sit back and have good coffee, wherever we are. And that was really our way to connect, and in a sense, that was our communion to one another. It was more of a bonding experience that more than anything else.
You mentioned to me earlier before we started that you're kind of in part of your laboratory there. Pan the camera over to, I guess, what is going to be your left. And what do we have over there?
Yeah, so here I'll give you a little tour and pardon the mess a little bit. It's
No.
part lab, part factory, but it's definitely a labor of love. So here in my garage, I call it the Dream Lab. So I have a coffee and espresso lab right there that I test and critique different coffees from around the country and around the world. And then back here is just more of a stage of some of my knickknacks from around the world, to include Colombia, and other parts of the world. So it's one place that I'm really able to kind of create into a atmosphere that allows me to kind of get those creative juices flowing, and it gets me excited. I don't see this as a job, but it's definitely more of a passion project that I hope to kind of provide me a kind of a way forward after the military.
Well, there's so many different things. I'm looking at my notes down here. So many different things I want to get to, things I want to ask you, things I find intriguing about you and your brand and your history. But since we just looked at the knickknacks, as you call them, the different some of the souvenirs from around the world, tell us a little bit about that. What are we looking at right behind you? There's a photo back there. This is from your active military service, right?
Correct. So this plaque behind me was a gift from my first Special Forces detachment, after I left to become an instructor. I I left the team after 4 years, 5 deployments. I'm sorry, 4 deployments. And I left the Special Forces team to go teach combat diving down in Key West, Florida. So that right there is it's pretty typical for a team member to leave and to receive a gift from the team as a memento and a way to say thank you. And the one behind me, it's pictures that my friends have taken of me from different parts of the world. There you'll see some of me in Afghanistan, some in the Amazon, in Ecuador and Colombia, um, and then probably some there in Honduras as well. But yeah, it's a gift from some people that I might call brothers.
Let's talk a little bit about your history, your childhood, because I it just reminded me, when as you pan the camera there, I saw something from Colombia and I think something from Brazil. Why are those two countries in particular meaningful to you?
So for a couple of reasons. So my mother and father, they both immigrated from Latin America. My father was from Brazil. He passed when I was only 5 years old. My mother, she immigrated from Medellin, Colombia, during a very tumultuous time in their history. Um, and they found each other in New Jersey. And then I was born in South Florida. After my father passed, my mother was just kind of left alone to raise the best she can, two sons. Um, in a part of this country that was very, very diverse. So I don't know if I could say English or Spanish was my first language, but they all kind of came and melded together. Um, I've always I've always attached myself to my Colombian side of my heritage, because that's really all I knew at that point. And I guess it defined me, and I didn't really realize until later on in life on how watching my mother speaking very little English, she was able to carve a piece of her history down in South Florida, with some limitations. And I think that really set the stage for me to be, self-sufficient as a man and as a human being, but also what that meant to me as as an American. Probably not a typical story that you might hear from, depending on what part of the country that you're from. So it's very much a deep part of my history.
We're talking today with Daisson Hickel. He's the entrepreneur and CEO of the Java Can, and you can find out more at thejavacan.com. It's a very interesting product. I think it pairs very well with coffee. Coffee is a big seller. I don't meet too many people that don't like coffee, but it's a great product. And you obviously were very intentional about the start of this company. Tell me, Daisson, what are the challenges when you're going to start a business and you've got this great idea? What are some of the challenges that an entrepreneur, a business person, runs up against?
Well, I'll tell you some of the challenges maybe your typical entrepreneur might find, but then I'll kind of maybe dive into maybe my own little vignette that I faced. The challenges that you're going to find is just knowledge, right? You have typically a long road ahead of you on how some of these little mechanisms work when it comes to customer engagements through social media, through finances, on how to keep a company running, how to keep it healthy, but also to expect that there are going to be some real down points where that you're just going to have to muscle through it, and there's just really no easy way around it. I was fortunate enough to find myself at the right place and at the right time with certain people that are smarter than me on this. So my journey has taken me from one key person to another, almost like a baton race, where, that baton, which is me, being passed from one person to another, that has been able to mentor me along the way and kind of help me kind of get where I am. I've been doing this for almost 5 years now, and the race is nowhere near over. And I'm looking forward to continuing to learn and to keep myself open to mentorships and relationships out there that are going to kind of carve what this business will look like. So I would say if I would chalk it up to maybe 2 or 3 things that people just need to be hyper focused on is you have to be passionate, because that is what's going to keep you awake on those late nights. You have to be open for people who are smarter than you, and build those relationships, right? Because those are the individuals that are going to maybe answer some of the questions that you just can't Google, right? And I would say probably the third thing, and maybe we could dive into this in a little bit, is the support of your network, of your base, which is my family, right? I always say my first investor was my wife. Without her support, I really couldn't do this and really go forward. And then that's where the buck would stop there if it wasn't for her and her support.
I was going to even ask you about that. I know, as I've gotten to know you, that you care a great deal about your family. You care about your wife. You care about your children, and you want to be a good husband and a good father. And then when you are, I suppose it's like you're working at least 2 jobs here. You've got your active military service, and then you're an entrepreneur. on the side, or it's hard to define it because it isn't on the side. You're spending so much time with it. How do you manage those things and you be good at what you do, and then not lose your focus over with your family? Because if you lose your family, then you've lost everything.
Absolutely.
Um, how do you find that balance?
So I learned early on in my military career that good leaders eat last. I remember going into the chow hall to get my meal, and even in basic training, my drill sergeants, as hard as they were on us, they made sure that we all ate first, and then at the end, then they will eat. And then I found that to be, also true when I was on the line, in the line platoon and out in the field. The leaders, the platoon leaders, the platoon sergeants would always make sure that their men would eat first. So I inherently took that as a way to kind of do business on and also how I manage my relationship with my family. I would be the last to eat. I would be the last to sleep. I would be the last to be taken care of. And I know there is a place there is truth in taking care of yourself and taking care of yourself first. But there's also a balance in that as well. So what I found true for me is, if it takes me longer to do a task, to do multiple tasks, I will make sure that all of those things are done first before I can sit down and relax. Or maybe that means I just wake up even earlier. If I'm planning on taking the kids to school, that just means I have to wake up a couple hours earlier to knock out my emails, to do what I need to do before the day starts. That way, my kids get the most attention. And I know just knowing about you that you're in Atlanta, and I'm in Atlanta several times a month, and for a variety of reasons, I find myself driving the 6 hours to Atlanta and then the 6 hours back to pick up my kids. And in the beginning, that was very difficult. It almost seems like endless hours of driving just to go see my two daughters. But I have found that to be a blessing, because in those 12 hours, round trip, I found myself, making phone calls, talking to old friends, talking to mentors, listening to ebooks. So I have learned that there are moments there that you can gain a lot of wisdom in how you manage your time, and how to use the moments that you just kind of throw away, but use those opportunities to make those valuable, right? So I took a 12-hour drive to go see my kids, but I made those productive, right? So, and anything else, those are probably my two lessons: is just do not waste time, and then always eat last.
Great interview we're having today. This is Daisson Hickel, who is my guest today for this Edge Extra. My name is Adam Asher, of course, and love having these opportunities to talk to guys like you, get to know you, learn from you. We have so much to learn from each other, and you're working hard as the CEO of the Java Can. And those who are listening today and watching today, be sure to check out his very interesting product, the Java Can, at thejavacan.com. It is perfect. So if you know anybody out there who likes coffee, and in particular, if they like adventure and they like to go on, these outings and go overland, go camping, spend some time outdoors, take something so that they can make their own perfect cup of coffee, then you need to check out the Java Can. That's just a little plug there. Not something that Daisson asked me to do, but it is a super cool product, and you'll need to check that out. Talking about family, talking about what's important, Daisson. You mentioned that when you were 5 years old, your father passed away. Tell me about what life was like facing that loss and in the years after that.
I would say, if as horrible as it is to lose a parent, it's probably, I don't know if there was ever an easy time for it to happen, but I would say it would probably be more difficult the older I got. So when I was 5 years old, all I knew was my mother. So I had to learn how to be a man, two ways. One, watching my mother hustle and, watching her do the best way she knew how to raise two young men, and then the military. So the gaps that I kind of had to kind of figure things out weren't very clear to me. I had to figure them out. With my mother working so much, she worked multiple jobs. I found myself, many times at home, but also found myself many times going to work with my mother. I remember I would be about, 6, 7 years old. It might have even been earlier than that. I would go with her to clean homes. And by the time I was 12 years old, I started my first business. I would detail cars for my mother's clients. And then I worked in a factory as a laborer during high school, and I would, take part of my paycheck and I would give it to my mom just to kind of make ends meet. I don't know if there's a college course that you could take on how to hustle. It's the school of the hard knocks. It's being put in these opportunities that some people might see as extremely difficult or might shy away from. But that's what I knew. I knew from a very early age on how to work hard. That you do not need very much to be happy. I grew up in a very, very loving home, full of love. I have a big family, a lot of aunts, a lot of cousins, and we didn't have much. We had, very humble beginnings, but the fact of the matter was that, we worked hard and we loved one another, and we really didn't need much. I didn't grow up thinking, I wish I had this or I wish I had that.
You grew up as the child of immigrants, right? Here in this great country, the United States of America. How do you think, you've talked a little bit about it, but how do you think that affected you? And then also, I guess really more what I'm after is your advice to the children growing up in this country as the children of immigrants. We are a country of immigrants. We hear that all the time. Tell me, what was that like? What did you learn from it? And what's your word of advice to those out there who have a varied and rich background that might include cultures and nations outside of this one?
I didn't grow up with a choice on where I was born. And my mother had very little choice on where she wanted to have her children grow up. I was dealt with a hand of cards, and I played them the best I could. And not to get onto the whole political arena here, but we talk about like how we define privilege. And someone might say someone of this ethnicity might have more privilege than someone else with a different ethnicity. But, if we look back just a little bit, somebody, let's say from an African country or a Middle Eastern country where they have absolutely nothing, they will look at us as Americans as privileged. And that's how I kind of see things is, we have a very unique opportunity in this country because of the freedoms that we have here, that we could do literally whatever we want to do, and we could be successful. I think the advice that I would give someone maybe that were in my shoes kind of growing up is I would expel any notions that you're less than anybody else. And the power is in your own hands, is in the scars, in the the dried fingertips of you just gnawing away at success, at life. And really the power is in your own hands to kind of make something of that. That's the privilege that we have being in this country. You might not find that same opportunity somewhere else. And that is regardless of who your parents are, what you look like. And I think we have far more in common than we do have something that kind of separates us. So I'm very much of the idea that we are more alike than we are different.
Talking today with Daisson Hickel, the CEO at the Java Can. Look him up at thejavacan.com. And I'm sure, Daisson, you're working on other projects and you're a very smart, savvy business person. We've talked about some of those, not going to get into all those, but if somebody wants to see what you have built and what's off and running as it is right now, check out thejavacan.com. One of the things I liked about your site and about your brand is that you are tied to adventure. And anybody that knows me knows that is near and dear to my heart. How do you define adventure, and why has it grabbed a hold of you so?
I'm going to see if I could remember the quote right or properly. Helen Keller, I think, once said that life is either a daring adventure or nothing at all. There's no take two in this. If you're not going and taking risks and seeing what's around that dark corner, to me, it's not something worth remembering. Here we go. I really don't have a whole lot to say about it. Then just watch me kind of do it well. And I hope we start creating a culture around people being a little bit more brave, a little bit more savvy with their time, and a little bit more open with communicating and connecting with people that they might not find themselves in contact in their daily lives. So I think that's how I kind of define it as of right now. That might change here
Sure.
in the next few months and few years, and we'll see how this whole journey progresses.
I like the word, though, the key word there being bravery. And if we all come up against things that we fear, and it is not the same for everybody. But if you have the ability to push past what you know, and you have the ability to be brave and to face the unknown, that's the great adventure. And it doesn't really matter where you are on the planet or what you're seeking to accomplish. There's an adventure anytime you face your fear. And so that a perfect word in my opinion is the word bravery. So a couple final questions here as we wrap this up. There's so much more to talk about, but as we come to the end of our time today, um, what do you live for? What's your purpose?
I'll share with you a moment that I had in Afghanistan that probably saved my life. When I started this company, I started around an experience that I had there that, on this fire base that I had in Afghanistan, we had this mountain, and I would climb this mountain, many times, probably in the middle of the night, to go to the top of this mountain and watch the sunrise. And if you've ever been to the deserts of the Middle East, some of the most incredible sunrises I have ever seen. And I would go up there, and eventually I would make coffee for me and my friends on this mountaintop. And ultimately it turned into this experience where I would watch this incredible scene, almost like God was painting a picture right in front of me that would look different every time. And I was there with some of my absolute closest friends, and other people would join us that, again, we wouldn't really know how to communicate with one another other than we both enjoyed coffee. Those are the moments that I gravitate to, that I live for. Waking up early, watching a good sunrise, starting the day with something pure and good, and then ending the day in kind of a similar fashion, and doing it around with people that I love and admire. And even if we have nothing much in common, I think we could find something in common, through those moments. So I think that's what I really live for, is and raising my kids to do the same, not thinking they're better or worse than anybody else, but we're all just a little different, but we're all more the same. And to go out and kind of seek those moments that we take for granted every single day.
Daisson, we've talked today about overcoming loss and facing challenges. I guess I really only have two more questions. One is more of the deep type of question. Okay, we're going to hit that one next, and then I'm just going to ask you, give us one more overview of the product. But what does it mean to be a man?
To be a man, I think it's to to take charge, to be the first one to stand up and kind of do the right thing. I haven't always I haven't always been the best at this. I've for sure stumbled time and time again, but I think the second part to that is to knowing where your faults are and have that bravery to kind of stand back up, dust the dirt off your knees, and then you're back on the saddle. I think that is what it means to be a man. But as I'm here raising 4 daughters, I don't know if I would tell them anything different. I think what sets them apart, what sets us apart, is that we seek for respect, as it's shown to us, but we also give respect to those in front of us, right? But with that, we're also caretakers. We're taking care of the pack. We're taking care of the group around us. So to me, when I think of what being a man is, I think about the lessons my mother taught me, and then the lessons that I've learned in the military to kind of protect my group, to eat last, and to always kind of keep a watchful eye to make sure that everybody around me is taken care of.
That's good stuff, brother. Thanks for sharing today, and thanks for connecting with me. I mean, again, that's one of the great things about the world we live in now, the ability to communicate, and for people that have similar interests and like minds and that are on a similar path for our ability to connect. And that's certainly been the case for me through the Edge of Adventure. And I think much like you, as you and I were talking earlier today, the Java Can and your company, that's one of many things you're working on and you intend to accomplish. It's really, again, I'm going to tell everybody to go to thejavacan.com and learn more about the product. But I know you've got a lot of big things that are ahead for you that you'll be working on. So similar with me, I mean, all of this is a journey, and very, very proud and very honored through the Edge of Adventure to have been able to connect with guys like yourself. So thank you for connecting, and thank you for joining me today. Tell us just kind of a parting shot for anybody. Tell us about the Java Can. Give us, you talked about it earlier. Tell us what it is and why you need it.
Adam, hey, let me just first by saying thank you very much for allowing me to come on here. And we talked earlier about not using this platform to necessarily make it into an infomercial. I think my product has to do more about connecting with people. I see the construct of it as like, it's very rough on the outside, but on the inside, it's something beautiful and worth sharing. And I think that is the kind of the beauty, this chat you and I are having kind of represents that. So just a little bit more about my product. It's the very first field coffee kit made in an ammunition can. It provides people the opportunity to make coffee, anywhere in the world. I've made coffee from the deserts of Afghanistan to the jungles of the Amazon and everywhere in between. It's just always surrounded with the idea of bringing people together, and that's what it is. So you could find it at thejavacan.com. I also highlight some of my travels and experiences through that on Instagram and on Facebook. Again, the Java Can on both those sites, and then a little bit on YouTube for sure. So please follow me, and then join the journey.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, Daisson Hickel, the CEO of the Java Can, and a friend of mine, and I'm certainly grateful for the friendship. You're an awesome guy. Love what you had to share today, and I wish you all the best, continued success with the Java Can. And in the meantime, everybody, be sure you go over and follow him on all the social media platforms, and let him know you heard about it right here on an Edge Extra with Adam Asher. All right, Daisson, we'll talk more soon. In the meantime, have a great day. Enjoy your family.
All right. Thanks, Adam.